we had a question come in from Kyle, and this should lead us into our next discussion about training AI models. Kyle asks, when is AI ML going to be able to model the complexity of the molecular and chemical behavior of a cell? If you want to model biomanufacturing, you have to model biology. Great question, Kyle. Who would like to answer?
I'll go. Yeah, it's an interesting question. It's very difficult to answer because as a scientist, people have been trying to understand the biological system more and more, but I don't think it's going to throw more and more interesting aspects that humans cannot understand, and those are the aspects which is going to always remain unique, and it's going to be challenging for AI to understand, and that's where human knowledge and intelligence is going to play crucial. So there is always going to be some nuances that's still not understandable, and where AI is not going to help in that aspect. So with regard to biological system, I would say there is going to be some amount of automation, better understanding predictions, model predictions to see how the cells are going to respond, but there are a lot of information that it's going to involve human intelligence to take over.
Thank you, Dean. So in this oops, sorry, Tuğçe, what were you going to say?
Just wanted to add to the discussion. So right now, in common practice in life science, we have kinetic models, right? So they are heavily used in life science. They are a set of differential equations, very explainable best practices. But the downside is they can be quite complex, like all these set of differential equations with hundreds of parameters, and they are still deterministic, while biological processes are highly stochastic. So the other end of the spectrum with AI is black box models, which works great in retail industry or other industries, but they are very accurate compared to deterministic models, but they are not explainable. So I think as a next challenge for the scientific community is to find somewhere in the middle, more like hybrid models that use AI, but also some already established knowledge from life science.
Thank you, Tuğçe. And continuing to pull on that thread here, in this next section, I want to spend some time talking about training these models, AI and ML models. An expression I often hear in this context is garbage in, garbage out. And but how do we define that? What is garbage, and more importantly, how do we ensure that no garbage goes into the training? And Tuğçe, we'll start with you here. You mentioned black box model. That was another question I wanted to ask. How do you build a good predictive model without it becoming a black box model that you can't really explain how the answers come out?
Yeah, this is still an ongoing research. There is a lot of ongoing research in that direction. We don't have a clear answer, but more like hybrid models are currently quite promising. So they combine both of these worlds, like life science and AI. And in terms of data quality, I think even before moving into advanced AI models, we need to step back a little bit and also understand how to collect good quality data to build these models. Just like Taylor, you said garbage in, garbage out. But here, I think it goes back to the culture of promoting data-driven decision-making in companies. And I realize this is still quite a substantial shift in mindset, and we need to really invest on helping people understand the potential of AI and build good data structures, data models, standardization techniques to enable these AI-driven initiatives.
Thank you, Tuğçe. Anyone else want to add to that?
Well, I first of all, I fully agree with what Tuğçe just said about the importance of building explainable models, because you can get a lot more buy-ins, especially on regulator side, if a models are explainable. But on the other hand, I also need to point out that most of the AI models we use today are like computer vision models, large language models. they're black box models. And your ChatGPT doesn't know anything about the grammatical rules. And it just learned from scratch. It really relies on this notion of neural networks, like almost like human brains function. Really relies on billions, actually hundreds of billions neurons connected. And you train those weights. Essentially, the training process is to figure out those numbers. Those numbers refer to the weights, which is the strength of this connection between neurons. Really, there's no way we can completely avoid training black box models, because black box models actually is the golden standard of today's AI. Maybe in the future that could change, but it is what it is now. So I think the challenge to me isn't so much about avoiding black box models. The challenge is really about carefully check to make sure the model works well in the real world, to collect real world evidence through rigorous experimentation, not to rely on models trained in one setting and to have this kind of wishful thinking that they will always work well in different settings. And the performance could also degrade over time. We have to be very, very careful. And my view is quite pragmatic. I think if a model works well, we're not using it for fully autonomous decision making. We should use it. So even with a black box model, but we need to have very good assurance of its quality, of its accuracy, of its safety. Because these days, the downside with this kind of black box model is that anyone can build an AI model within 5 minutes, really. And it's, there is the old saying in machine learning that if you torture your data long enough, it will confess everything, right? So if you build a sufficiently complex model, it can explain everything, it can predict every pattern, but it might not work in real world settings. We have to be very, very careful in ensuring real world performance actually matches what's claimed on the paper.
Yeah.
I'd like to add to on Tuche and Tinglong on regarding to the black model, specifically towards biomanufacturing, if you will. Biomanufacturing per se is a very highly regulated industry, and it involves patient safety, drug safety, and so many other things. So as Tuche mentioned, black box model can be more efficient in ads or web search or online shopping modeling. But when it comes to biomanufacturing, there's a lot of need of transparency in data, transparency, protection of the data, privacy, when it comes to regulated industry. So that's the challenge that AI is going to face as we move into implementation into biomanufacturing. So that's going to take a while because there's a lot of moving parts to it. I think as we move in, regulatory bodies are going to play a heavy role in early engagement and implementing this technology into biomanufacturing space.
Yeah. Thank you, Dean. And when we're talking about training data, how much of an issue is bias in training data, and how can we minimize it? I don't know who would like to go. Maybe Dean or Tuche, Tinglong.
Yeah, I'll just add 2 lines. So with regard to the training, there are, as I mentioned previously, with regard to biomanufacturing specifically in biological systems, the complexity, right? There's a huge biological variability. So you have to be very careful what data goes in, what needs to be used as part of the AI learning, but there should also be data integrity, how to secure this data without any manipulations, because as you said, garbage in, garbage out, how valid this data is going to be input will impact heavily on the manufacturing as well. So complexity of the biological system has to be taken in control during training of these models.
Yeah,
Thank you, Dean.
I just want to add one broad point. First of all, I fully agree with the Dean I just said. But just one broad point here is that the biomanufacturing, you're dealing with very, very complicated global supply chain system that across many cultures. And so there's, when we talk about AI, if we think of AI something as basic as computer vision, you have models that can see things, can detect objects, can detect the uncompliance, then you have to be very careful because a lot of models, their accuracy is much higher in the developed world than in the developing world. If you're trying to, for example, if just something very, very as simple as detecting whether workers are following the hygiene requirements, you're going to have very difficult, very different performances. And if I use the same model trained in the US and then use it applied in India or Italy, we also have a documented accuracy difference. That not just about the humans, but also of different objects. You could have a same picture so basically same picture in the US, it could, the model reads it as a soup, right? And then in a different country, it could read it as food. It's just, we have to be very careful about the generalizability. So I think back to your point, Tyler, I think that buyers, to some extent, is about whether a model is generalizable to different settings. The other point is actually about importance of human oversight. If you could have experts who look over, who say that, well, that's completely ridiculous finding, right? And they are able to call out. I think the fundamental fix to bias AI model is actually to bring in subject matter expertise. There's really no substitute for that.
Exactly. I totally agree with that. I think human in the loop is really important. And especially in biomanufacturing, there are so many things that you cannot also control. For example, raw material variability. I see it's an important issue that affects the batch-to-batch variability, the quality. And sometimes you have no control over it. For example, your supplier, they update something in their raw materials, like in their formulation, you're not even aware of it. And then you suddenly start seeing some different patterns or different outcomes in your processes. So it's really important to keep people in the loop and understand the potential causes of bias or quality issues.